Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. Published as a podcast as well, so I'm going to try and keep everything, primarily audio only. And if you're not able to look at my screen right now, that's fine too. So I'll just be going through this slide by slide. It will be I always say it's going to be relatively fast, but that it always ends up taking about an hour. But if we did it in 30 minutes, that would be awesome and okay with me. Because the main thing that I want to do, I just want to get across to everybody who's attending the webinar, hey, here are a couple updates from the team, things we're going to be doing, and then make sure that you understand how the new cycle works and how it fits in your life and how that looks on a daily basis, so you can make the best decision for 2020 in one of our 12-week cycles on one of our different tracks. So let's get started right away. Let's see here. This is Operation Overlord. I'm going to get into that a lot more. A lot of people who maybe already Googled it or checked it out, you probably know what Operation Overlord is. So really the invasion of Normandy. And there's a big reason we're doing that. It's kind of the theme this cycle. And so I'm going to hop into that a lot more. But first, updates. I'm going to go over some updates, and then we will get into the 2020 invasion and what we'll be doing. Now, a few other just housekeeping things. You can throw anything in the chat that you want. I won't be looking at it for majority of the presentation just because I will be doing the presentation, but I will check periodically, especially at the end. There's a Q&A section specifically here in Zoom. So if you go to the Q&A section, you can ask a question. Those should be reserved for me at the very end, and I can answer those. Joe and Ashley are also, you probably already saw them in the chat. They are here to help answer any questions. And if you guys have anything, you can knock that out. All right, I'm going to get back here. All right, so what updates do we have? A lot of the usual ones, and then a few new ones. So the team, I like to just make sure everybody knows it's not just me here. Most of you know that by now. Most of the team is interacting with everybody more than I do for the most part. So there is me, Joe, Courtney. He's kind of operations here, handles a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff. Ashley, she's helping with a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff too. And then, a major part of the women's health track and has really taken that on over the last cycle and done a really good job. We have Kyle Schrum, who does a lot of coaching, and then VD, who is specifically our shred architect and does a lot of the programming for that track, does all the programming for that track. So that is the team. We are here to support you in any way possible. Now, a quick announcement. I'm not actually going to get into all the details, but the podcast, Garage Gym Athlete Podcast, if you're not already subscribed to the podcast somehow, make sure that you are subscribed, because in 2020, we're going to be doing a lot of cool new things. So you're going to want to make sure that you're subscribed. A lot of new podcasts, a lot of different ideas and theme segments that we'll be hitting on that are going to be a lot of fun. One of our major missions here, build better humans, but also autonomous athletes. So we want athletes me specifically, I want them to choose to be here, but not because they couldn't do things on their own. I really want to make athletes as intelligent as possible, as autonomous as possible, and they want to be here because we have great community and someone else is thinking of the programming for them. But the more autonomous I can make you in your health, nutrition, programming, all those things, I know that you can spread that to your friends, your family, and really make the world a better place as far as health goes. And so you are the rock that gets thrown in the pond and has that ripple effect by becoming an autonomous athlete. And that's my goal for everybody. Always has been and always will be. So just keep that in mind with all the resources we publish over the next year. There's going to be, a lot more podcasts, a lot more content, and it's all aimed at building better humans and autonomous athletes. So that is the podcast. I won't go into it much more, but that is really what we're looking to do in 2020. So updates, I was asked specifically to talk about this, and we just wrapped up the women's health track. It was in beta over the last 12 weeks, and now we have closed it. So it wasn't actually in Team Builder or anything like that, but we do have this women's health track specifically dedicated towards women in the programming, in the coaching, in the nutrition. Now, a quick update on this, because a lot of the women are interested in pursuing this further or staying on the women's health track. There are a few different changes. So one, the women's health track programming was specifically, it was kind of a tweaked version of Hard to Kill. That's going to change when we pick things back up. And also, it was in beta, so we want to see how much work it's going to be. It was on our coaches. My wife, Emily, was heading up some of that. Ashley was heading up a lot of that as well. And it is a good amount of work because it's more involved than any of our other tracks from a coaching standpoint, from check-ins to nutritional programming and all those things. So we're having to stop and regroup. So the first 6 weeks of 2020, there will not be a women's health track as we regroup and get all the resources pulled together and, make it a little bit more of a systematic process for everyone to be able to be coached and see the results, because we finished the beta. All the women who stuck with it saw phenomenal results. And, I'll be sharing more of those as we go along, but the results are awesome. And so that's we want to push forward for the women's health track. But like I said, it's a different beast, a different animal than our other tracks with the level of involvement from Ashley and Emily specifically. And so we're going to take a 6-week break to make sure we have a good plan and then start mid-cycle. And then that is how the women's health track will operate from then on. It'll operate in 6-week waves. So you can look at it as a 6-week wave, or 2 would happen per cycle, like starting the second cycle. And the reason we do that is because, getting there's so much involvement from the athlete too. So getting a lot of buy-in for 6 weeks is easier than 12 weeks. And that was one of the biggest things we found, is 12 weeks was long for people to be that involved. So we want to do a really aggressive 6 weeks and then let the athlete decide if they want to continue on from there, because the people who stuck all 12 weeks saw phenomenal results. At the 6-week mark, halfway mark, we saw phenomenal results as well. But then the drop-off started, after that 6-week time period. That's human nature. That's coaching and programming. That's the fitness industry in general. So we want to make sure people are getting the best results possible, and that's kind of what we're doing in 2020. If you guys have any questions about the women's health track or what we're doing there or why, feel free to throw it in the chat, and I'll get to those. And Ashley could probably answer some more specific questions better than I could. All right, we are going into Fit Week. So everybody knows Fit Week is where we are testing. So we're testing a lot of different parameters during Fit Week, but this is not really new. I just want to make sure that everybody knows, because we probably have some new athletes here, that Fit Week is optional. So you do not have to test during Fit Week. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you're happy with your current test, or you don't think it's time to retest. And we have optional programming in Fit Week. So when you're inside the app and you see Fit Week populate next week, under all of the tests, you'll see the optional programming. Just follow the optional programming if you do not want to pursue the testing, or maybe you only want to pursue some of Fit Week. And that is completely up to you. We like to have our benchmarks and parameters set so you kind of know where you're at. But that's very individualized to the athlete. Is it important to you know those things, or is just consistency important for you? And so one thing that we do for all of our athletes, if you film a video, has to be a video, and it has to be posted in our Facebook group. I like to make this very clear. Every single webinar, every single time I talk about Fit Week and PRs and how to submit it, if you want to shoot a video of your PR and email it to me, that's great. I'm going to give you a high five, congratulations, but I will not send you a PR shirt, because the rules are you have to PR. So we have to have a benchmark in the system for you. You have to PR it on video, and you have to post it socially into our Facebook group. You don't have to post it on your specific feed or anything, but you need to let the team see it, see the other athletes, let the other athletes see it, because it gets everyone fired up. It helps the community. And that's the big reason we do that, is the community aspect of that, not just the fact that you hit a PR. And I also know you're not going to submit any videos of crappy form or anything like that if you know thousands of other athletes are going to be looking at your video. All right, so we have the black PR shirt. If you hit one PR in the cycle, you will be sent the black PR shirt, like I said, with the videos in the Facebook group. And then the red PR, if you hit 5 PRs in one cycle, which a lot of people have achieved, way more than I ever thought would have attained that red shirt. So you have both of those open to you during Fit Week next week in the testing. So your next question is, how do I get the PR shirt? Well, after you submit your video and everything, there's a link inside of the app. So go to the app, open it up. You will go to the More section in the bottom right-hand corner, hit Documents and Links, and then when you're there, you're going to see the PR shirt link. That'll link out how to do the entire PR shirt process. So go ahead and click on that, and you will be able to get your PR shirt, whether it's red or black. EO3 Elements. This is kind of a foot stomp. Like, I don't want this to get lost in its importance. You need to be doing the EO3 elements. This is also in the Documents and Links section, above where the PR shirt was. We have the recovery game, and that'll be slightly changing in 2020, shifting from the recovery game to the EO3 element. So you'll see it right there in the app. But you want to download this PDF, and you really want to start honing in on these parameters for the EO3 elements. It is so important for you. It is the prerequisite to seeing results physically, all the things that we're going to ask you to do here. So if you don't have the EO3 elements in and you're not seeing results, you need to dial the EO3 elements in, and I guarantee everything else will follow. So get the EO3 elements dialed in, and we can go from there. If you want to deep dive on the EO3 elements, we did an entire podcast on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast, so you can scroll through our feed and find the EO3 elements where we talk about each one of these in detail for an hour total, going over all the different elements. So you can do that, but I want to make sure everybody knows where to access it. Now, if you do want to change tracks, you will also do that in the app. There's a link right there. You can click on that link, fill out the track that you want to change to, and then submit that track change request. Now, remember, if you didn't know, track changes are done manually by our coaches. So you can submit a track change. We typically fill those same day. The weekend is the only exception there. So know that this is not something where you can flip-flop back and forth, just to check out all the different programming. That's why we provide sample programming, so you can see all of it and see what you want to do. So the track change request form is there, and know that it's not instantaneous, but that is how you do track changes. All right. Now, patches, Killing Comfort patches. We sent our first batch out last week, last cycle, at the end of last cycle. And so it is for attaining 80% consistency across a 12-week cycle, across everything that's required of you in the app. So you need to get green dots or film or get a majority of it. So it doesn't actually have to be a green dot. It just needs to be 80% with how Team Builder calculates things. So 80% across the 12 weeks. Of training, and then you can get the Killing Comfort patch. We will be sending them again. This is not something that you submit, that you really don't have to do anything. We pull a report at the end of the cycle, and it gives us the percentages, and then we go through and we find you in the Killing Comfort world. So you don't need to do much. You'll get an email saying, hey, you are eligible for the Killing Comfort patch. Here are the details on how to do that. And just another cool thing about the Killing Comfort patches, they are made right here in the state of Texas with Texas leather. My dad and I actually laser cut them together, and he's the one who actually ships them out. So this is a very family-run operation. So it's pretty cool that this is very, in-house, about as in-house, other than it actually being in my house, it's in my dad's house, about as in-house as things can get. So the Killing Comfort patch, I'm really proud of, and they're really cool. It's a really cool thing to be able to provide. And going forward, I like to celebrate people's PRs because we can honestly help people get a lot of PRs in the performance world and live healthier, optimal lives. But it's way more important to me for someone to earn a Killing Comfort patch than it is a PR shirt, because that means you maintain consistency over a very long period of time. And that, my friends, is what's going to get you results in almost any endeavor in life, is that long-term consistency. And so we're going to be doing some new cool things in 2020 with the Killing Comfort patches too. For those who earn multiple Killing Comfort patches, there's going to be an additional earning that you can do. I'll share that more in the Facebook group and everything, because I don't want to get into it now because we're pretty far off from being able to do that. But it is something that we will be doing for athletes who are super consistent cycle after cycle. All right, we're going to get into things now. We will get into the brief. I'll check the chat real quick, just see if there's anything burning. Take a sip of water, and then we will go. All right, so yes, we are going over the tracks now, and I'll hit up the chat again. So we're going over each track for the most part. Right now, I say for the most part because we're not going to go over like the legacy track. I'll explain why. But first, body geometry is what we just concluded. This is a big new thing in the coaching space, the EO3 coaching certification and our coach acceleration program. Body geometry is something that you just went through. It is a balancing cycle. It's our goal to keep athletes healthy and optimal, and that's what we want to do. But it has now ended. So balancing has officially ended. We are not doing that anymore. We want to keep, but we still want to keep athletes healthy, optimal, and high performing, and that is for decades. That's our biggest thing here. That's our biggest approach. Is we want to keep. If you're going to keep training with us, we want to keep you healthy, optimal, and going. We don't want you to just only be, smashing a PR or being able to run fast. We want you healthy, optimal, high performing, functioning in life, being able to, play with your grandkids, great grandkids, and be a very functional human being forever. So that is really our goal in doing all of our programming. So what does that mean for body geometry in 2020? And this is kind of one of the announcements we have for our programming. What does balancing look like in 2020? Well, we're not going to do another balancing cycle. We have done this previously. We typically do one balancing cycle per year. It's a full 12 weeks. But I found just from athletes' feedback and everything, it's balancing can be a bit monotonous. It's kind of like force feeding a kid his vegetables. It's like, look, I know you need this, so just do it, right? And that's kind of how I've approached balancing cycles. Is like, hey, I know it's a little monotonous, maybe not your favorite thing in the world, but you need to do it so I can keep you healthy, optimal, and performing for long periods of time. But we're not going to take that approach anymore. We're taking an entire different approach. And so this is how we'll be balancing in 2020, as opposed to a full 12-week cycle of body geometry or balancing. It's going to now move to our deload weeks. So we will be doing a body geometry week as our deload week after every 3 week. Our fourth week will be that deload will be a body geometry balancing cycle there. So that's something that you guys have to look forward to and what we're going to be doing. So that's how we operate right now. If you didn't know, we have a 12-week cycle. It consists of 3 4-week waves, and we always go 3 weeks on, and then the fourth week is typically a deload, although some athletes would argue that they're not much of a deload sometimes. Deload does not mean easy. Deload just means deload. Either we're deloading your central nervous system or we're deloading the volume, one or the other. And now we'll be deloading with body geometry across all tracks. So every single track will balance and do body geometry the same way with deload weeks. So that's something new we're doing in 2020 that we haven't done previously. So with balance, what was great about the last cycle is they were all very similar. The strength training and balancing parameters were all very similar across all the different tracks: hard to kill, endure, strength, shred. So there was less FOMO, right? You could be on one track and know that the other track was only slightly different, maybe in the conditioning. So this is what I said last webinar. I was like, hey, there's less FOMO, fear of missing out, here with the balancing. So just pick a track and stick with it, and you're going to be fine. Well, FOMO is back because we are not in a balancing cycle anymore. Every track is going to be completely different, almost entirely, really entirely. There's almost no overlap whatsoever. So that's bad for you if you do have that shiny object syndrome, as a part of your being. Well, FOMO is back because all the tracks are going to be very different. So you're really going to have to think about what your goals are, what you want to achieve in 2020, and hopefully this webinar will shed some light for you on all that. So welcome to Operation Overlord. So that was the code name for the invasion of Normandy, D-Day. back in 1944, and that is going to be what we're doing in 2020. So this is our Operation Overlord. We are going to invade 2020 because that's the only way that you can approach a new year is by a full-on frontal invasion and get in there and just start crushing things and smashing things as best you can. You don't want this like timid, like, hey, maybe we'll see what happens. We'll kind of go slow and like one thing at a time. No, we're going to invade 2020. Operation Overlord, crush the first 12 weeks of the year. That way we're on the path and we have the momentum to crush the rest of the year. So welcome to Operation Overlord. Now, something I thought was really cool is that Dwight D. Eisenhower, he wanted to encourage all his soldiers taking part in the D-Day invasion on June 6, 1944. So he wrote this declaration, this letter, this order, really, and sent it to every single sailor, airman, and soldier out there to try and get them pumped up and ready for the invasion of Normandy. And so I took his text, which you can kind of read there, maybe not on my screen, but you could definitely Google it. I took his text, changed it up a little bit, and I want to get you guys fired up. So I took exactly what he did and put it in a Garage Gym Athlete fashion. So I'm going to start with this, and then I promise you we will get into the tracks and what we're doing in 2020. So this is from Supreme Headquarters Allied Garage Gym Force, which is where I'm sitting right now here at EO3 HQ. So coaches, athletes, and better humans of garage gyms, you are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have planned for many months. The eyes of your families are upon you. The hope and prayers of fitness-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave coaches and fellow athletes, you will succeed. Unlike our brothers in arms on Peloton bikes and the Globo Gym front, you will not fail in 2020. You will bring about the destruction of comfort, the elimination of the need for motivation by a reliance on discipline, and you excel to a level of optimal performance and health of which most can only dream. Your task will not be an easy one. Comfort is your enemy, and he is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. Most are unaware of the hidden plagues comfort brings forth. However, do not be fooled, for comfort will fight savagely. But this is the year 2020. Much has happened since the comfort triumphs of years past. The United Nations of Garage Gyms have inflicted upon comfort great defeats in open battle, man-to-man. Our killing comfort offensive in past cycles has seriously reduced the strength of this insidious enemy. Our intelligent programming has given us an overwhelming superiority with simple equipment in place at our disposal, great reserves of willpower that will vanquish the enemy. The tide has turned. Garage gyms of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in the battle against comfort. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck. All right, guys, that's it. That is obviously a kind of a spin on the new book that I'm writing or have finished writing now. We'll be publishing in 2020, Killing Comfort. I truly think comfort is a insidious enemy that is destroying, friends and families all around the world. So while this is kind of like a fun, iteration of Eisenhower's letter, I'm also serious. Comfort is a sneaky son of a you-know-what, and it sneaks up on you. Then all of a sudden you're complacent. You don't know why you're not trying hard anymore, and it'll eventually kill you. And I mean that in all honesty. If you embrace comfort too much and you become lazy and you're not moving your body like a lot of people, you're not making the harder decisions that it takes with your diet, comfort will take your life. And so you are all here to push back against that. And I'm proud of each and every single one of you for making that decision and declaration. So let's get into it. This is 2020. Like I said, we are going to invade it hard. So in the Endure track, we'll be hitting the beaches on Utah. Hard to Kill will be invading at Omaha. Shred, Gold, Strength will be hitting Juneau, the beaches there. And then No Gear and 3 Block will also be hitting similar to Hard to Kill, but on Sword. All right, so let's start with Endure here. So here's your operation brief. The track is the Endure track. The cycle name for Endure will be Utah. So you'll see the use of Utah a lot in the programming, the names of the workouts and everything. Now, the overall goal for the Endure Track this 12 weeks is going to be VO2 max. We are increasing your VO2 max. This is a little bit different than just aerobic endurance, because aerobic endurance can be just, you could go for a walk, you could go for a long run and increase your aerobic endurance, but not as much your VO2 max. Your VO2 max is actually, the way to improve it is crappy. It's unfortunately pretty crappy. And I have to be very honest with you here. If you jump down to looks like, the first little line I have there is that it's slightly unpleasant interval training. So that means you're going to have to hold a relatively high threshold level of pain for a lot longer than you would normally like. VO2 max intervals can last 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes in length, minimal recovery time, and then you're back at it again. But there is a lot of interval training. So the major, if you're unfamiliar with our programming, we have a major and minor for every month and then for every cycle. And so our major here is going to be aerobic endurance, specifically catered towards that VO2 max, increasing the VO2 max. Our minor is muscular endurance. So what does this look like for you in your day-to-day life? As far as, will you enjoy this training? I think it's very, very important that you answer that question. Like, anyone watching, listening right now, make sure that you hey, what would I enjoy doing the most? Like, what am I going to stick with and have fun doing? Because if you're like, hey, shred sounds awesome because, they're talking about, leaning, cutting, whatever, that sounds great, but I would have so much more fun doing the strength track. Then just do the strength track. If that answer is clear to you, wherever you're going to have the most fun, that's where you need to be. Not this, eating your vegetables approach like I was talking about earlier. When it comes to our tracks, do whatever's going to be the most fun, because if you stick with it for 12 weeks, that's awesome. Maybe it will lead to a different track the next 12 weeks. But really answer that question as I go through these operation briefs, like, where are you going to have the most fun? So that's the Endure Track. Cycle names Utah. VO2 max increase is the big thing that we're going to be doing there. Even the strength training is geared towards research I pulled that will help increase your VO2 max. So aerobic endurance and muscular endurance. Now, some of the cons to this cycle, there's going to be a little bit of heavy lifting, but not much. So if you get on the Endure Track, we're going to hit some heavy lifts about once a week, not a ton and not a lot of volume. And the only reason we're going to do that is maintenance of any strength that you have. But our goal is not to build a big, huge, back squat. So we have slightly unpleasant interval training. I already went over what that's going to be like. Strength that burns. So think lower percentage, higher rep type stuff. And then a few heavy lifts. And the only reason that's really in there, like I said, is to preserve strength that you might already have. And then if you don't already have that strength, it will definitely build. But strength is not our overall focus, not increasing the back squat or PRing those numbers. We really want to get your VO2 max increased. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that if you want to live a long time, VO2 max is something that you want to have up there pretty high. So very, very good track to be on right there. All right, next, let's get into the strength track and what we'll be doing here. So this is the strength track. Cycle name will be Juno. Goal is raw strength and power. Our major for this track will be strength speed. So that means you are moving weight quickly. And so think of more like a back squat at not like the 80-90%, but say let's go down to 70-75%. So at loads and percentages, intensities that you can still move the weight quickly. And then the minor is going to be power endurance. So power endurance, if you were to go back to like our fitness test, the kettlebell fitness test, when we do the snatch test with a kettlebell, things like that are power endurance exercises. So you're doing power movements, but you're putting them on a longer timeline. So you could think of, kettlebell swing, a kettlebell clean, kettlebell snatch, just to keep it in the kettlebell world there. But instead of doing like 2 or 3 reps, like some power movements are typically done, you might be doing it for time, or you might be doing it for a higher amount of reps to build up some of that power endurance. So we're going to have very limited traditional conditioning. Some of you are clapping your hands right now. And so some of you are like, no, I need the conditioning. If you're on the strength track, this is probably the least amount of traditional conditioning we've ever programmed, or I have ever programmed in as far as like straight up conditioning. And so that for some of you, you might actually love that. So there's a lot of lifting. There is strength strength conditioning through power endurance. So most of your conditioning will come through these power endurance exercises because they can be 2-3 minutes long with rest. It's kind of like interval training, but it's more power based. So you'll still get a lot of conditioning from that. And we will still train in the very, bottom tier of the energy systems, making sure that you have a base level of conditioning. But like I said, it's limited, very limited in that traditional conditioning sense with intervals and those types of things. And then there will be heavy lifting with accessory work. So a lot of heavy lifting, and then a lot of accessory work. And so the accessory work, things that complement the squat, things that complement the deadlift, like pull-ups, bicep curls, tricep kickbacks, all those kind of things. You're going to see those in the programming. So it'll be lots of accessory work, lots of heavy lifting. You're going to see that power endurance throughout and not as much conditioning as you go through the strength cycle there. Now, if you're like, hey, this sounds awesome, but I do need a little bit of conditioning, here is my recommendation to you. Do the strength track, but then also do Meet Yourself Saturdays or some version of Meet Yourself Saturday to where, because most of our Meet Yourself Saturday workouts, like 99% of them are longer conditioning based workouts. Like they might be disguised as something else, but they are longer in duration and they take a lot of conditioning power. So if you wanted to do the strength track and then also hit Meet Yourself Saturday for a little bit more conditioning, that would be your best bet there. All right, shred will be landing at gold. So what will we be doing in shred? So the track is shred. The cycle name is gold. The goal, and really the goal always with shred, is to build lean tissue. So we want lean tissue growth. And I just want to stop there for a second and talk about why that's important. So whether or not you actually grow any new muscle is irrelevant. That's not, people get too wrapped around the axle on that kind of idea. But the type of training that is out there that will help you build muscle is going to be a very high caloric burn in nature. And the more lean tissue that you actually do produce or you are able to build, the more calories you're going to burn at rest. So your resting metabolic rate is just going to be higher the more lean tissue you have. So training like you're trying to build lean tissue has a higher caloric burn. Once you actually have that lean tissue, you burn more calories just sitting here breathing. So that is why we are always trying to tackle that as our goal within the shred track. And so something that you need to keep in mind, don't think like, oh, he's talking about lean tissue growth. I want to lose some weight and he's talking about gaining 10 pounds of muscle. Well, you might gain some muscle, but what would happen realistically, and this is what we saw in the women's health track that had a hypertrophy slant this last 12 weeks, is the weight on the scale might be of marginal difference. Maybe, we had some people lose 20, 30 pounds, but like some people lost 5, but then they lost, 25 inches. And so that is kind of what we're looking for. I don't care so much about that number on the scale. I care about your body composition changing. And so that's what we're doing in the programming here. So the goal is lean tissue growth. The major is going to be muscular hypertrophy, which I already kind of went over. Hypertrophy is muscle growth. That's what we're looking to do. And then the minor is strength speed. And so what does that look like to you? So you're seeing a lot of body weight metabolic conditioning. You're going to see a power and strength split, oftentimes supersetted. There are always a lot of supersets in the shred track to keep your heart rate up and to keep that high caloric burn going. So you will see strength movements. You will see them combined with power movements, and nothing that's too crazy on the heavy side of things. So we're not going to be jumping up to 95%, doing 1 rep maxes or singles all over and over again. So you're not going to see a lot of heavy lifting there, but you will see a lot of the shred style conditioning, the shred style supersets that are kind of, quintessential shred track programming. So that's what we'll be doing on the shred track. Remember, guys, if you have questions about any of this or you feel like I didn't answer something for you, do let me know, because we're getting into the last one here. The hard to kill track. So if you didn't know, no gear and 3 block follow hard to kill. So no gear specifically does, and then 3 block is actually just a cut down version of hard to kill. So I program hard to kill first. I take a look at, hey, if an athlete could only do 3 blocks per day, what would be the most effective blocks for them to hit? I then highlight those, give it to the team, and then they program 3 block out. So 3 block really is hard to kill. It's just 30-minute version of hard to kill with the most important dose that we could give you of the hard to kill training. So if you feel like you're moving into a season of life in which you love hard to kill, but you're going to be crunched on time. You can only hit that 30 minutes a day. Then follow 3 block, because it's going to be a lot better than you picking and choosing what you should do from hard to kill. If you let me pick that for you, I guarantee it's going to be a lot more effective. All right, but let's get into hard to kill, specifically what we're doing. So the track is hard to kill. This is our most popular track. We have the most athletes on this track, and for good reason, because it's effective and it keeps your mind engaged. This cycle name is Omaha. If you're familiar with the actual D-Day invasion, Omaha was the worst of the worst. It is where there were the most casualties. It was the hardest beach to overtake. Omaha was pretty tough. So the goal here, this 12 weeks is going to be overall athleticism. And to be athletic, to be an athlete, you have to be really well-rounded. That's always our approach in hard to kill, but that's really the goal. So athleticism, we want you to be able to jump, run, throw, and then look good in that process. So what is our major? Well, we're doing a speed strength major. So not strength speed, like I already went over, we're going over speed strength. So that means we will be lifting very quickly, dynamically in a lot of cases. And the reason we're doing that is because the faster you lift, the more powerful, the more power you can generate, the more powerful you will become. And then we're also going to be doing the minor mixed modal aerobic training. So mixed modal aerobic, mixed modal is more of what people would call a metcon, so metabolic conditioning, where exercises back to back to back for longer durations. So going down to what that looks like. So mixed modal aerobic metcons are grinding intelligent metcons. So when I say grinding, I mean that they're going to be longer, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30-minute metcons. We've done stuff like this in the past, but they're going to be a little bit different. When I say intelligent, I mean that they are thought out not only in the exercise selection, but also the programmed rest times. This is where almost everyone programming metcons does it wrong. You should be programming in rest times into your metcons. So, do these amount of exercises, rest 2 minutes, tackle them again, because that way you're getting more to the level of intensity you want each time. You're backing down, as opposed to this running your head in the wall approach. It's kind of CrossFit style metcons that are not very useful in doing anything other than help you sweat and burn a couple calories. They're not actually moving you, progressing you forward. They don't tie into your strength training or your overall program. So that's what I mean by intelligent. And metcons we are just conditioning the metabolic system. That is a very wide-ranging terms. Almost anything you do in exercise is a metcon. How we got this down to being metcon means CrossFit workout, I have no idea. But that is why I put it in parentheses. If you want to call it a metcon, go for it. We will call it mixed modal aerobic training. But we'll be doing a lot of fast lifts, so you will see more power-based movements here. If you are a fan of like a clean, we won't be doing any real snatches, maybe some kettlebell snatches you'll see. But if you want to, if you like power cleans and hang cleans, things like that, you'll be seeing those fast lifts in there. We'll also just be lifting some of the more normal, traditional, deadlift, squat. We'll just be doing those faster. You'll see a lot of jumping in there as well. So more explosive stuff, like I said, to build that athleticism, and you're going to see variety. So I'm not gonna pull up the slide that I have in previous webinars where I show you how the different blocks are laid out across different tracks. But we have what we call balancing blocks, and in hard to kill, our balancing blocks are almost equal to our major and minor blocks. And that's not true in every other track. So we spend almost half of the time we have with you on a daily and weekly basis balancing the athlete out. So that means you're going to see a lot more. You're going to see carries and farmers walks and different energy system training spread out over the course of the month. So there's a lot more balance and variety in hard to kill. And I think, like I said, this is why it's our most popular track, because everyone struggles a little bit mentally with that. Doing anything that's repetitive or monotonous. So hard to kill is almost every week when the workouts are published, you're like, oh, cool. Here we're doing some new stuff. Here it is. But we still very much have a major. We're doing a specific thing. We have a goal. We have a minor, all moving in the right direction. But hard to kill, as I've said in previous webinars, it's a slower route. You have to be a committed athlete over a long period of time. And if you are, hard to kill will keep you healthy and optimal and high performing, just like we want every athlete to be. So that is the hard to kill track. That's all of them so far. So let me get into sample training. This is probably the easiest way to do to view this. So sample training will be going out today. So after this webinar is over, I will be publishing the link for you guys in the Facebook group, be emailing things out in our 5 Line Friday email, also putting it in our Instagram profiles, all those kinds, like every single way that we can. We'll be shooting out the sample programming today. Like I said, that starts today and over the next couple weeks. And you have you have Fit Week to decide, go through Fit Week. You also look at the sample programming and answer that question. What would I have the most fun doing? What am I going to stick to? What would be the most interesting thing to me specifically? So the sample training will go out today for every single track, so you get to see all of it. And if you actually register for the webinar, which is everyone here, you will get that email shortly after we conclude that has access to it. All right, questions. I will pop into the different questions that we had. If I can get it going. All right, Marco says, are you guys going to run a new batch of EO3 patches? I either missed the post or I was in Nepal when you ran it last time. Yes, we will. We 100% will be running those patches again at the beginning of the year. Cindy said, off topic, but I have a friend who wants to start working out, but she has very little training experience. Would you suggest starting her with the basic training that is in the crew library, or would there be another option for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience? On another note, what was the percentage for the Killing Comfort patch? I hit about 88% of the women's health track, and I can go back and enter my workouts in the app since it was so close to the hard to kill and still count. So it's 80% for the patch. And yes, you absolutely will get the patch, Cindy. You don't need to go back and log everything. I'm very aware of your commitment and level of dedication during the women's health track. So you will definitely be getting the Killing Comfort patch. All right. Looks like Joe answered some of these. I will run over the chat real quick and just see if there's anything else I should look at. All right. There are a lot of stuff in here, but I will go over it real quick. Time cap for the webinar. We're almost done. All right. Yeah, you can change tracks anytime. Got Cindy's. Most of these are Joe already threw in the Q&A section, but I just want to check everything else out here. All right, cool. New cycle will be starting the first full week of January. So really it's December 30th is when the new cycle starts. That's the first workout of the new cycle, and that takes us right into January. Yes. So someone asked, will hard to kill still be programmed to last about 1 hour? 100%. So if, and actually answered it, but I want to make sure everybody listening to this or who didn't get to see this question, maybe the replay or whatever, will it be about 1 hour? So all of our programming is based off of 5 blocks per day. 1 block equals 10 minutes. So 50 minutes of training. So your body moving for 50 total minutes. And we call that an hour because somehow within 5 blocks of training, there's always that invisible block. We call it the invisible block. It gets lost, whether you're checking your phone, entering in your results, writing on the whiteboard, warm up, cool down, all these other things. Another 10 minutes gets thrown in there somehow. But that's a big thing about our training. We do 5 blocks per day, so no one will bust that time cap. But likewise, when you walk into our training, you need to know that it is 5 blocks. So when something says 2 blocks and that's 20 minutes. If you're on minute 23, you should have time capped yourself and moved on, because what will happen over time is eventually you'll realize how quick you need to move to get through things, and you become more efficient and effective. If you couldn't do anything but row for the last month, what should you do? I mean, I think that you could hop in almost anywhere if you do it slowly. Really that would be my best approach, because I think you're pretty well trained, Sandy. So you might be slightly deconditioned, but you're not like a beginner athlete. I think you could handle it. 5 Line Friday. I haven't got any of those emails yet. What? All right. So I got to throw in a link to, if you register for the webinar, what you did because you're here, you'll get the email. So the 5 Line Friday doesn't matter, but I'll make sure that you're in the the 5-Line Friday email, Philip, and we can throw out a link for that as well. Yep, new cycle starts 30th. All right, I think I got to all the questions. Awesome. Hey, look, we did it 45 minutes. Told you to be short. All right, so that is it. That is everything. I appreciate everybody being here. I look forward to 2020 with the invasion of the year. These are going to be some really fun cycles. If you were just with us for your first cycle going through balancing, that is definitely something you kind of walked into our body geometry. And now we're going back to the roots of what Garage Gym Athlete programming is over the next 12 weeks. And so I think there's going to be a lot more variety for people who enjoy that and hard to kill, and just a lot of opportunities for you to get involved. I'm excited about all of the new podcasts and stuff that we're doing in 2020 as well. So make sure you're subscribed and see what we're doing there. And I want to send some killing comfort patches. I want to send a lot of killing comfort patches. So maintain that consistency over the 12 weeks. That way I can send you a killing comfort patch. That is what I want to send to people more than anything else in the world, because 100% you can game this and lie and get a killing comfort patch. But if that's a person who you are, like, you've got a lot bigger problems than me sending you a patch or not sending you a patch. But those who actually do the workouts, put in the work, log them in the app, and do that over the course of 12 weeks, you're a human being I'd like to rub shoulders with. And I'm excited that you're here and tackling this cycle. So be consistent, see results, and glad to have each and every single one of you going into 2020. If you guys have any questions, feel free to follow up with me in the Facebook group. But that's it. I'm going to stop this one today. I appreciate your time. Later. Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.